January 23rd, 1963, Beirut, Lebanon. The 30th year of betrayal. The air in the room is thick and heavy like a damp shroud. It's saturated with the humid Lebanese heat, the smell of spilled scotch, and 3 decades of lies. By the window sits Nicholas Elliott, one of MI6's finest officers. He flew through the night to get here, and for hours he replayed a single sentence in his mind. Not a question, a statement. Across from him in an armchair sits his best friend, Kim Philby, a legend in the service, a war hero, the man who was about to be appointed head of Britain's entire secret intelligence service, the godfather to Elliott's children. They had survived the war together, gotten drunk in London clubs together, buried mutual friends together. They are not just colleagues, they are family. Slowly, with an immense weariness, Elliott places his glass on the table. The dull thud of glass on wood sounds like a gunshot in the silence. He looks into the eyes of his best friend, into the eyes of the God they had all helped create, and finally, he says the words, "I have always looked upon you with great affection, Kim, but we know that you have been working for them from the very beginning." A silence descends. Not just an absence of sound, but a ringing void in which even the lazy ceiling fan seems to have stopped. Not a single muscle moves on Philby's face. No surprise, no fear, no anger. Only a bottomless, all-knowing weariness. In that moment, Elliott understands. He hasn't come to unmask a traitor. He has come to hear the devil's confession. At this second, no one in London yet grasps the scale of the catastrophe. They think they've caught a mole. They don't know that the man in this room has for 30 years been a cancerous tumour at the very heart of the empire, that he personally sent hundreds of agents to torture and death, then wrote reports on their failures with a straight face, that he turned friendship, trust, and the very essence of British gentlemanliness into his primary weapon.
This isn't the story of how they caught him. This is the story of how, in God's name, it was allowed to go on for 30 years. How the most charming, the most brilliant, the most trusted man in the system became its most effective destroyer. To understand that, we have to rewind the tape to the very beginning. 1934. Cambridge, England. The beginning. At first glance, it is paradise. Honey-coloured buildings, centuries old. Perfect lawns that only professors are allowed to walk on. Boys in expensive sweaters debating Plato. But this is not an incubator. It's a hothouse, where in the suffocating atmosphere of hypocrisy and looming disaster, the most poisonous flowers are cultivated. The world outside is cracking apart. The ghost of the Great War still haunts Europe. Millions have been thrown onto the streets by the Great Depression. In Germany, a mad corporal leads crowds of brown shirts. The old world is dying in convulsions. And here, at Cambridge, the empire's brightest boys look at their fathers, the lords, the bankers, the politicians, and see only weak old men, incapable of stopping the plague of fascism. At the centre of this intellectual cauldron is Harold Kim Philby. He is the perfect product of the system. The son of a famed aristocrat, his slight stammer, which he has weaponized into a tool of disarming charm. He doesn't argue, he persuades. He doesn't push, he seduces. In any club, in any circle, he instantly belongs. While the future pillars of society are debating Marxism over glasses of expensive port in secret elite societies like the Cambridge Apostles, Philby is making a choice. He and others like him come to a conclusion as simple as a punch to the gut. Capitalism is rotten. Democracy is powerless. The only real wall against the tide of Hitler is the Soviet Union. And at that moment, the recruiters appear on stage. Forget grim-faced men in trench coats. Soviet intelligence sent its best seducer to Cambridge. Arnold Deutsch, a brilliant Viennese intellectual, a psychologist, a polyglot. He didn't recruit with force. He played on their greatest sin, their pride. "You, the best minds of Britain," he told them, "see what others do not. You must become the secret soldiers in a great war for the future of humanity. This is not treason against your country. This is a higher form of loyalty. A loyalty to the future." And the boys bought it. They felt chosen. Knights of a new secret order. Thus the Cambridge Five was born. 5 musketeers who fought not for the Queen, but for Comrade Stalin. Let's meet this rock band of traitors. Kim Philby, the maestro, the brains and charismatic frontman. Anthony Blunt, the connoisseur, the future personal art advisor to Queen Elizabeth II. A snob who despised his Soviet handlers as uncultured brutes, but dutifully supplied secrets from the heart of Buckingham Palace. Guy Burgess, the walking catastrophe. Perpetually drunk, loud, sloppy, and a public menace. No one in their right mind would trust him with a secret, so everyone spoke freely around him. His chaos was his best camouflage. Donald Maclean, the ghost. A quiet, awkward, diligent diplomat. The workhorse who single-handedly passed more American atomic secrets from Washington than anyone else. And John Cairncross, the outsider. The son of a common labourer who hated these aristocrats and, fueled by class resentment, gladly leaked their secrets. He worked at Bletchley Park, breaking the Enigma code, and passed Stalin intelligence on German plans for the Battle of Kursk, possibly changing the course of the entire war. And to this motley crew, their handler Deutsch gives a single, brilliant instruction, a plan that made them untouchable for decades. Live your lives. Build your careers, marry the right girls, denounce communism, become the very essence of the system. And wait. When we need you, we will let you know. It was the concept of the sleeper agent long before it became a cliché. Kim waited, and he performed. He goes to Vienna, working as a courier for underground communists. Then, Spain, he writes brilliant pro-Franco reports for the Times with one hand, while passing Franco's military plans to Moscow with the other. He is wounded, and General Franco himself pins a medal on his chest. A Soviet spy receiving a medal from a fascist dictator. That was his level. 1940. The world is on fire. Britain needs smart men, and Kim Philby, with his impeccable reputation and a medal from Franco to prove his anti-communist credentials, knocks on the door of MI6, and of course they let him in. They had no idea they had just appointed the Fox as head of security for the hen house. Being a double agent isn't a job. It's total immersion. You're an actor on a stage where one wrong line means the curtain comes down on your neck like a guillotine. And Kim Philby was the Daniel Day-Lewis of the spy world. He didn't play the part, he became it. He became the perfect MI6 officer, hard-working, meticulous, a brilliant analyst. His bosses adored him, his subordinates respected him. He was the life of every party. And all the while, beneath this flawless mask, a cold machine was cataloguing every scrap of information for Moscow. He was constantly juggling grenades. 1949. London. The 15th year of betrayal. Operation Valuable. MI6 and the CIA decide to set Albania ablaze from within. The plan is beautiful, like a Hollywood movie. Drop hundreds of Albanian exiles to start an uprising. The man coordinating the operation is, of course, our boy, Kim Philby. Imagine these men, patriots who have waited years for this chance. They say goodbye to their families. They train in Malta. They board the planes. They jump into the night sky over their homeland, believing they are bringing freedom. They kiss the ground as they land. But Kimmy has already arranged a welcoming committee. Every date, every drop zone, every name. It all landed on Philby's desk, and within hours it was known to the Albanian secret police. They were waiting. Hundreds of men were captured, tortured in medieval cellars, and shot. The operation drowned in blood, and in his cosy London office, with a portrait of the king on the wall, Kim Philby wrote brilliant reports on planning flaws and was praised for his cool head. He washed his hands in blood and dried them on the Union Jack. But one grenade nearly exploded in his hands. Istanbul. A Soviet vice-consul named Konstantin Volkov decides to defect. He walks into the British consulate and offers to name 3 Soviet moles in London. 2, he says, are in MI6, and one of them is the head of a counterintelligence section. The encrypted message about this offer flies to London and lands on whose desk? You guessed it, Kim Philby's. In that moment, his world should have collapsed. Anyone else would have panicked, but not Kim. His blood must have turned to ice, but his face remained a perfect poker face. He exclaims, "Gentlemen, this is a breakthrough. I will personally fly to Istanbul." He seizes control of the situation, and he flies. But you know how it is. Bureaucracy. Bad weather, then visa problems. He delayed for so agonizingly long that by the time he arrived, all that was left of Volkov and his wife were bloodstains in the trunk of a Soviet embassy car. Drugged, they had been shipped to Moscow for execution. Kim returns to London a hero who just narrowly missed. He has just orchestrated the murder of the man who could have exposed him and received a commendation for it. 1951. Washington, D.C. The 17th year of betrayal. The American NSA cracks Soviet codes and identifies a mole in the British embassy. Donald McLean, one of the 5. And where is Kim at this time? In Washington. He's the liaison between MI6 and the CIA. He dines with the head of CIA counterintelligence, the legendary paranoid James Jesus Angleton, discussing the hunt for moles, all while knowing the Americans are closing in on his friend. Angleton was mesmerised by Philby. He considered him his mentor, his friend, a paragon of British aristocracy. This friendship would become a ticking time bomb for the entire CIA. Philby realises the dominoes are falling. He makes a desperate move. He summons Guy Burgess, the walking catastrophe, to Washington and orders him to warn McLean. May 25, 1951. A thunderclap. 2 high-ranking British diplomats, McLean and Burgess, defect to the USSR. The scandal is monstrous. All evidence points to a third man who warned them. All roads lead to Philby. He is recalled to London. The interrogations begin. It wasn't an interrogation. It was a conversation among gentlemen in a club. They had no smoking gun, and he had his ultimate weapon, their own snobbery. He didn't make excuses. He looked them in the eye with a sincere wounded offence. "Chaps, it's me, Kim. We went to school together. We drank together. How can you?" He pressed on their core belief. A man of our circle simply cannot be a traitor. It's bad form, and they surrendered. The system couldn't digest that it had spawned the very virus that was consuming it. He was fired, in disgrace, but with no charges. He had, once again, walked away clean. December 1961, Helsinki, the 27th year of betrayal. A KGB major named Anatoly Golitsyn defects to the West. He is not a low-level clerk. He's from the analytics department. He knows the Lubyanka's darkest secrets. He doesn't know all the names of the 5, but he draws a silhouette of their leader, the career in MI6, the posting in Washington, the head of counterintelligence. He doesn't name a name, but the silhouette fits only one man with terrifying precision, Kim Philby. An icy panic sets in London. The realization is monstrous. The man they let go wasn't just an accomplice, he was the center of the entire web. Every failed operation, every dead agent for the last 20 years, it was all him. If this gets out, the government will fall, and the reputation of MI6 will be destroyed. They decide to act quietly. No arrests, no noise. They need one thing, a full confession they can lock in a safe. And for this mission, they send the only man they think can crack him to Beirut, where Philby is living as a journalist, his best friend, Nicholas Elliott. January 1963, Beirut. We are back in that stuffy room. Elliott hasn't come with handcuffs, but with a gentleman's offer. "Kim, you give us a full confession, and we give you immunity from prosecution." They still believed that deep down he was one of them. And Philby begins his final, most brilliant performance. He breaks. He weeps. He repents. "Yes, Nicky, you're right. I'm so tired of the lies." Day after day, he feeds Elliott crumbs of disinformation, creating the illusion of a full confession. He is simply stalling for time. Elated with his success, Elliott flies back to London to report, psychologically, he is shattered. It was British intelligence's last and most fatal mistake. January 23, 1963, evening. Kim Philby is due for dinner. He never shows. He simply vanishes into the Beirut night. Weeks later, the Soviet cargo ship Dolmatova docks in the port of Odessa. A man in a fine English coat steps onto the deck. The 30-year game is over. He is home, if you can call it that. In Moscow, he was made a hero, a general in the KGB, an apartment in the city centre, a dacha. But he had lost. He, an aristocrat of the spirit, a connoisseur of fine whiskey, had traded the best clubs in London for a queue for sausage. For the rest of his life, he would drink foul Russian vodka, listen to the BBC at night to hear his native tongue, and read the Times, which arrived months late. He was a legend in a gilded cage. And in the West, his legacy was even more terrifying. His betrayal drove James Angleton of the CIA mad with paranoia. He began a ruthless witch hunt that paralyzed American intelligence for a decade. Philby destroyed something more important than secrets. He destroyed trust. He injected the poison of paranoia into the veins of Western intelligence. The story of Kim Philby is not about communism versus capitalism. It is a story about arrogance, about how a man with the right accent and the right handshake can commit the greatest betrayal in history and be applauded for years by the very people he is betraying. He wasn't just a spy. He was a warped mirror in which the entire British establishment saw its own ugly, self-infatuated face. And they did not like the view one bit.